How do you assess your day? Positive progress throughout the day, or no?
No, today was not a good day for me. Big struggle with the balance of the car, and a lot different to the previous years I've been here.
Yeah, I mean, you've won here 8 times before, so you know what you need around here. When you talk about the balance, can you be any more specific?
We tried 2 different things. We tried rectifying some of the balance problems we had in P1. We changed the car to P2, and it's just inconsistent, very inconsistent balance from corner to corner. So you can't say it's just understeer, you can't just say it's oversteer. It's just far from being on rails and very out of balance. So, but I think it's probably something to do with maybe tire temperatures or something. So we're going to try and figure that out for tomorrow.
McLaren look a class apart. I mean, if you can make some improvements, can you hope to fight for the second row?
I mean, Charles has been quick today, so I mean he's been generally happy with the car. For me, I'm quite far off, so I highly doubt it.
Can a simple 5 words phrase change global perception about historical team like Ferrari? Today we are going to crumble why Hamilton's statement in Hungary could be one of the most shocking of his recent career, and what that means for the Scuderia. No, the car doesn't feel good. Those 5 words, transmitted by radio to Riccardo Adami, were not simply a casual observation. They were a sentence, a kind of emotional and technical judgment that encapsulates the internal drama that Lewis Hamilton lives in Ferrari in his first season dressed in red. In a category where each word said by an elite pilot is measured with magnifying glass, that phrase rumbled stronger than any time marked in the Hungaroring timetable. It was not only what he said, it was how he said it, at what time he said it, and, above all, what that phrase implies within the Ferrari universe. During the free training of the Hungary Grand Prix, Hamilton returned to boxes after an initial batch in which the car did not respond either in braking, or in passing by curve, or in traction. The SF-25, despite having a new aerodynamic package derived from the Monaco GP where Leclerc achieved the best result of the year for Ferrari, showed erratic behavior, inconstant and clearly unpredictable. It is a car that seems not to be designed with Hamilton's style in mind. While Charles Leclerc manages to maximize his performance playing with survival and taking advantage of the grip peaks, Lewis is outside his comfort zone. This car demands surgical adaptability to changing adhesion conditions and demands an early interpretation of the dynamic rear train behavior. And that is where frustration lies. Lewis Hamilton is not making pilot mistakes. He is fighting a technical architecture that responds in an opposite way to his driving instinct, forged in years of symbiosis with Mercedes. It is not a matter of talent, it is a matter of chemistry with the machine. And in Formula One, when that relationship fails, there is no twist that solves it immediately. Hamilton's frustration, however, is not born only from raw performance. It is born from a broken expectation. He arrived in Ferrari with the desire to write a new golden chapter in his legacy, driven by the romantic vision of returning the Scuderia to the throne. But instead of feeling part of a glorious reconstruction, it is mired in a technical nightmare in which advances are late, updates do not translate into results, and communication between pilot and engineering still does not reach the operational harmony he used to. In Hungary, that rupture was exposed with crudeness. The team opted for a high-load configuration for the SF-25, including a large rear wing, accompanied by an aggressive incidence flap and a prominent nolder that, in theory, had to benefit the behavior in the slow and half curves of the Hungarian layout. But even with those technical tools, the car was still difficult to control. The evolution of the times by return was disappointing, and the most alarming, the car did not respond predictably even after moving to soft tires. Hamilton was relegated in rhythm both in front of the McLaren and his own partner. In a circuit where the pilot's feeling makes the difference, not having confidence in the rear train equals running with bandaged eyes. And that, for a world heptacampion, represents an unforgivable betrayal of the level of demand that has marked his entire career. All this converges in a critical point: Hamilton's body language inside and outside the car. His gaze in the garage, the gestures with his mechanics, the tone of voice in the interviews. Everything indicates that it is reaching a dangerous emotional threshold. The calm with which he used to face weekends is now replaced by gestures of tension, disappointment, psychological tiredness. The phrase he launched in Hungary was not only a technical evaluation, it was a statement of accumulated exhaustion. Because when a pilot like Hamilton, who has won races in impossible conditions, begins to doubt the car, the alarm turns on not only for his engineers, but for the entire structure of the team. Ferrari cannot afford to lose the confidence of his star pilot, even less when the credibility of a project that should be the renaissance of the rampant Cavallino is at stake. And so, in a circuit that in theory should serve to consolidate progress, Hungary ended up being the scene of an uncomfortable revelation. Ferrari is not up to the technical challenge that represents having Hamilton in his ranks. And what is worse, the disconnection between car and pilot continues to deepen. And meanwhile, inside the paddock, the looks do not deviate. Rumors grow. Is Hamilton repentant? Do you feel betrayed by a broken promise? Do you have doubts about its continuity in this project if the trend does not change? The questions float in the air, fed by each statement that distills more honesty than trust. Ferrari's image at the Hungary Grand Prix was a paradox with wheels. On paper, the team had brought one of the most aggressive technical packages of the year to the circuit. At the engineering level, the Scuderia opted for an aerodynamic solution copied from the success in Monaco. A maximum load rear spoiler with a high incidence flap and an aggressive nolder to increase the vertical load in the slow sectors of the layout. In addition, they integrated a new rear suspension geometry based on greater anti-quat, seeking to reduce the compression of the rear axle and acceleration to achieve better traction and curve output. From a strictly technical point of view, it was a coherent proposal. Hungary requires traction efficiency and braking stability, and the entire package aimed to offer those advantages. But the problem with Ferrari and what differentiates a competitive car from a dominant machine is not the design sheet, but the ability to translate that theory into stable and predictable performance. And that's where they failed again. What was clear in Budapest is that Ferrari has ideas, but does not execute them consistently. The SF-25 showed contradictory behaviors: chronic subwiring in low-speed linked sequences, aerodynamic rebounds in the middle of the main straight line, and an obvious disconnection between the front and rear train. These types of symptoms are not only the result of chassis design or aerodynamics. They are the reflection of a poorly integrated technical philosophy, of a car that is built without a unified concept. In other words, a Frankenstein of partial solutions. Hamilton, meanwhile, was caught in that maze. He could not find a configuration with which he felt comfortable. Although they tried adaptations to the setup throughout the day, such as the modification of the rake to mitigate the rear axle instability and variations in the tire pressure to improve the operational temperature, none of these changes had the desired effect. Even more serious, the car did not respond consistently back to return. What worked in one batch disappeared in the next. This leads us to a more raw truth. Ferrari is operating without a clear direction. It has modern tools, trained personnel, and one of the best simulators in paddock. But he continues to act as a team that doubts every decision he makes. They change the strategy on the march, modify plans at the last minute, and depend on their pilots to make up structural errors. There is no clear narrative. There is no long-term plan that is paying fruits. And that, in a Formula One that rewards precision above romanticism, is a sentence of stagnation. The incorporation of Hamilton should be the turning point. His experience, his capacity for technical analysis, his leadership. All of that should translate into a new Ferrari, a rational Ferrari. But instead of absorbing that knowledge, the structure seems to be resisting to evolve. Hamilton is pushing towards a more methodical work model, more analytical, but the Scuderia still behaves as a team that reacts more than he anticipates. And the problem is that this gap is not reduced with new pieces or simulations. It is reduced with a deep internal restructuring. Ferrari cannot continue to think that by bringing the best pilot in the world, the results will arrive in inertia. The current Formula One does not forgive improvisation. And today, more than ever, it gives the impression that Ferrari moves without a compass. In Hungary, it was clear that the soulless technique does not win championships. And that a team without direction, for more history you have, can only aspire to survive, but never dominate. The car can improve, but if the internal culture does not change, Ferrari's true enemy will not be in rival cars. Will be in your own decisions. The Hungary Grand Prix not only marked the closure of the first half of the championship. He also opened a chapter of uncomfortable questions for the most laureate pilot in the history of Formula One. After 3 races in which Hamilton has had to deal with an unstable car, questionable decisions of the wall, and an unrelenting emotional adaptation, the real challenge begins now. The summer break is presented as a forced pause, but also as a moment of restart. A silent truce where both Hamilton and Ferrari should decide what kind of relationship they want to build in the remainder of the year. The big question is not whether Hamilton can find speed, because talent has not disappeared. It has demonstrated it in fragments, isolated batches, aggressive classifications, surgical maneuvers. What is at stake is much more complex. It is about knowing if it can transform an entire structure from the inside. Because that was the real reason he signed with Ferrari. He did not come to compete only, came to transform. He came with a mission that goes beyond the podiums, reprogramming the DNA of a team that, although he has the tools, still does not know how to assemble them in a winning way. In this context, the control you need to recover is not just that of the steering wheel or the ideal traced. It is the symbolic control over the project. And that type of authority is not imposed. You win. To do this, Hamilton must do something that few have achieved in Maranello. Change the mentality of a team from its nucleus without causing rejection. The summer break will be an emotional hinge. A moment to redefine roles, debug errors, renew commitments. And there, in the shadow of Maranello's offices, it will be decided if Hamilton can recover the control that seems to be escaped today.